Hello and welcome to another episode of the Cybersecurity Happy Hour podcast. I am your host Christie and this is episode 25, and the topic of this episode is Robinhood's data breach cyber attack. Now, why am I discussing this? Really, this breach really happened on the 3rd. But what really drew my interest to this is the lockdown happened 2020. Some people were laid off and there was a lot of panic. In the US and even the UK, there were schemes implemented by these governments and to help businesses as well as to help those who became unemployed. So for the first time, those on lower earned wages were able to get unemployment that exceeded their income. So some had this excess money and they decided to I won't say the word invest, to use it to trade to get more, because of course there was still uncertainty at that time. Now, one of the platforms used for trading is the Robinhood Trading App. So what is a Robinhood Trading App? It's a US trading platform. They're based in California, American company, and they're based in California. Because there was a trading app, it makes it easier for people just to trade from the phone. I'm not talking about investments here. I'm just talking about trading. And these new traders experienced huge returns. And of course, because they experienced huge returns, there was a lot of noise about it on social media, and of course people boasting or revealing the returns on their trading. So this also attracted more people who were looking to get more for their money quickly, made them to go to Robinhood. Okay, let me go into what happened. So from what the reports say, I said the 3rd of November in 2021, a person that wasn't unauthorized. So if you look at my previous podcast, I've explained to you what an unauthorized person is. They managed to get unauthorized access to a number of personal information. So you see these Robinhood traders, someone breached the security frontier and gathered information about their customers. So how did this breach take place? I remember an unauthorized person I'd mentioned earlier on. What they did was they used social engineering and they impersonated a customer service rep, and they used social engineering to gain access to their customer support systems. Once threat actor bypassed the security controls, they were able to have access to client information, the customer information, also to their support systems, and this included things like personal information, which included names, email addresses for some of the customers, including their date of birth and their postcodes, or in America they call it zip code, so in the UK we call it postcode. How did this social engineering happen? Quite interesting. So this unauthorized person, they social engineered a customer support employee by telephone. When one of the easiest ways of penetrating the system is hacking the person. So they managed to convince this customer service person that they were reliable and were part of the organization. Result of this is that they gain access to the customer support systems. That is where they were able to harvest the customer or client information. That's how it was done. Now, some of you might be wondering, what exactly is a data breach? So I just explained that. What really happens here is with a data breach is that confidential information such as customer's name, email, telephone number, probably credit card details, all those personal data, sensitive information that's supposed to be protected from those who do not need to know were accessed. So access these files without authorization. One of the ways that this can happen is sometimes through technology or poor user behavior. In this instance, they went to a person, so there was probably lack of security awareness from that person. I'm saying probably, I do not fully know. So this is how, or a few of the ways this can occur. Now, Robinhood has come back and mentioned and given assurance that they have investigated the breach and this attack has now been contained, and what they believed from the results of the investigation or their findings, that there were no social security numbers were harvested, and also bank account details were not harvested as well. So that's what they're putting out there. So as a result, at that time, said they did not claim there was no financial loss. However, there are some effects, of course, which I want to talk about in a minute. What's the effect? When there's a data breach, what is the reputational effect on that organization? There are going to be some effects as well. So once again, any organization that suffers a data breach, they can have a reputational damage. So of course, the clients may feel that they're not keeping their data safe. And if they feel they're not keeping their data safe, some of them will exit and just leave, stop using the app and request for their details to be removed. It can also have consequences on possibly other third parties, suppliers, because again, that trust doesn't just affect just the customers. They have other contracts with other organizations that supports them with their services. They store data on their systems and they might think, there's something wrong here. No, let's look at any alternatives. Or some will stay, of course. Other effects is financial. Based on some of the reports, when this breach was announced, the share prices of Robinhood dropped slightly. So again, if the share prices are dropped slightly, this can be disadvantage to those who own Robinhood stocks, and can be an opportunity for others, because if the stock has plummeted slightly, it's a chance for people to purchase those stocks at a lower price. So it works both ways. However, that assurance may have been gone. They can regain this, but these are some of the effects, unfortunately, from a data breach. What about the customers? Again, so let's look at how can they affect the individuals. Now, if these details are harvested, again, I said their social security number, which is permanent, you're given that you have that until you die. That can't be changed. Things like your bank account, those details, your credit card details, then it can be used for criminal activities. So that will affect that person. It becomes an inconvenience. So they have to it could ruin their credit history. And if let's say they were about to apply for, let's say, a mortgage or a loan or any sort of credit, it's going to have an impact. So because they have to report it and then find a way to mitigate it. Well, not to mitigate against it for happen in the future. But the immediate effect is that then that mortgage application cannot go forward, or that credit application can't go forward, or even if it does, you be charged a higher interest until you can prove that you were not part of that fraud. What I mean is that you did not take part, you didn't plan it. So it can be proven at a later date, but it's just an inconvenience, a temporary inconvenience. Once again, for the company, is that once the organization has been associated with any sort of data breach, when somebody mentions that company, yes, you know what their services are, but the back of your mind, you also remember the data breach. For example, like Equifax, when you mention Equifax, some people always remember the data breach as well. So unfortunately, that reputational damage follows that organization throughout their history. Okay, so what are the preventative methods in place? How could they, let's say, possibly prevent this from occurring in future? So that, again, they've investigated the systems and the findings said nothing was taken. However, they still have to go back to their existing controls. So one of the things they could do, number one, they need to kind of identify again how that sensitive information is stored. So data in storage, how that data is stored, how that data is transmitted from source to destination, or how that data is processed. So if this data was stored and it was not encrypted, if it was harvested and encrypted, of course, using a strong encryption key, then the person will not break it, and then they could probably walk away. But if it's in plain text, then obviously that information is there for them, for the cyber criminal or this whoever, the malicious person or entity to use quite easily. So number 2, I mentioned about data in storage. Now, where is this data stored? So you need to identify, and then of course look at the security. Where is that data stored? Is it on site? Okay, is it on a server somewhere in the data center? Is it on a virtual machine? Are there many instances of that data? Okay, the security of the applications, the strangers who have access to the folders, the file, what permissions do they have on these folders, i.e. and the permissions looking at who can read that data, who can write to that data, who can execute. Those kind of permissions need to be examined. Number 3, so this Robinhood attack, again, so it was a social engineering attack. Then we need to look at what about our users, what employees have access to this data. Are they privileged users? Are they standard users? Are they temporary staff or contractors? And we need to again look at the access, look at your access control. Then you have to look at, okay, then what about if you're going to be transmitting data? Current TLS certificates, are you using, how is your APIs? Are your APIs secure? So again, there's going to be a lot of investigation and controls need to be put in place or strengthened, I would say. And then fourthly, number 4, so do a robust risk assessment. So you analyze these assets, then of course you must go do a risk assessment. Look back at your previous risk assessments and go through the findings, but however you must do a thorough risk analysis and then look at the risk internally, externally as well, that could reduce the data breach or really reduce it. Really reduce. It's done by, again, you have to categorize the risk. So you've done your risk assessment. Now, what are your findings? Is it high, medium, or low? Then you need to use the 4 options, which is reduce the risk, transfer the risk, avoid. Okay, so and I'll leave that last one for you to find out what that is. Now, other preventative measures are encryption. Make sure the organization is using strong encryption, especially for data that is sensitive. Train staff, so that staff that unfortunately was social engineer definitely needs training, security awareness training to prevent this from occurring. Not just themselves, again, probably the whole team will need to be trained again. Patching, of course, I would advise patching, updating software, especially critical software, as soon as we release by the vendor. Now, what about the credentials? Enforce strong credentials. Multi-factor authentication should be implemented if there isn't none at the present time. If that system doesn't allow it, have some sort of defense in depth in place. I said educate the staff again. Now, until organizations kind of take this seriously, and they do, but you see, this is something that's ongoing. So they need to really always keep an eye on this, because the threat landscape can change. Now, this is all I have for you today's episode. I hope you enjoyed it, and thank you once again for listening. If you have any comments or any questions, please contact me. All the information is within our show notes. Thank you once again for listening, and have a great day.